The ship from Earth docked at Station Apex 7 on a cold morning in Galactic Standard Time. 12 humans stepped out into the massive steel hallway, carrying simple bags over their shoulders. They looked around at the thousands of alien warriors who filled the station, and they said nothing. Park walked at the front of the group. He was 32 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes that showed no fear. Behind him walked a woman with strong shoulders and hands that had broken bones and won medals. The other 10 humans followed quietly, their footsteps soft on the metal floor. Station Apex 7 was the largest fighting arena in the known galaxy. Every 10 years, the strongest warrior species gathered here to show their power. The Dominion sent their soldiers with blade arms that could cut through steel. The Empire brought their reptilian champions with scales harder than armor. The Collective displayed their four-armed fighters who could strike from every direction at once. And now, for the first time, Earth had sent humans. The aliens in the hallway stopped to stare. A group of warriors clicked their mandibles in what sounded like laughter. One of them, a massive creature standing 3 meters tall with arms like swords, stepped forward to block the human's path. This was Commander. For 300 years, no living being had defeated him in combat. His exoskeleton was covered in the marks of 1,000 victories. When he spoke, his voice was like rocks grinding together. "These are the famous humans," looked down at Park, who barely reached his chest. "I was told Earth had warriors. I see only soft little animals." The other aliens laughed. A crowd began to form around them. Park looked up at the massive commander. His face showed no anger, no fear, nothing at all. He simply bowed his head slightly in a polite greeting. "We are honored to be here," he said. "We hope to learn much from the great warriors of the galaxy." This made the aliens laugh even harder. Commander leaned down, bringing his sharp face close to the human. "Learn, little creature, what could you possibly learn? You have no claws, no armor, no venom. Your species is barely 15 years old in the Galactic Union. You are children playing at war." Stepped forward to stand beside Park. Her eyes met the alien commander's gaze without blinking. "We did not come to play," she said quietly. "We came to train." Stared at her for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been disgust. "Train," he repeated, as if the word tasted strange. "Very well, little humans. Go and train. When the demonstrations begin, we will see what Earth's finest warriors can do." He stepped aside, and the crowd of aliens parted to let the humans through. Mocking sounds followed them down the hallway. The human delegation was given a small gymnasium at the far end of the station. It was old and dusty, clearly not used for many years. The lights flickered when Park turned them on. "They gave us the worst room," said Lee, a broad-shouldered man with a flat nose that had been broken many times. He did not sound angry. He sounded like he had expected this. "It has a floor and walls," Park replied. "That is enough." The humans began unpacking their bags. They pulled out strange items that confused the alien workers who had followed them out of curiosity. Ropes with handles, heavy balls filled with sand, flat rubber mats, thin towels, bottles of water. A four-armed alien from the Collective watched with his large eyes. "Where are your weapons?" he asked. "Where is your combat armor, your enhancement drugs?" A small woman with muscles like cables under her skin smiled at him. "We brought everything we need," she said, holding up a jump rope. The alien stared at the rope. His translator device tried to explain what it was for, but the explanation made no sense to him. Why would warriors jump over a rope? What possible combat application could this have? High Arbiter arrived an hour later to officially welcome the human delegation. He was ancient, his body like a walking tree, his voice like wind through leaves. He had overseen the combat summit for over 1,000 years. "Humans of Earth," he said slowly, "you are welcome at Station Apex 7. I must be honest with you. Many here do not believe you belong at this summit. Your species has no natural weapons. Your bodies are fragile. In the hierarchy of warrior races, you are ranked at the very bottom. Park bowed respectfully. We understand, High Arbiter. We ask only for the chance to show what humans can do. His wooden face could not show expression, but his voice sounded almost sad. I hope you will not be hurt too badly, young ones. The warriors here do not show mercy. After he left, the 12 humans stood alone in their dusty gymnasium. Through the observation windows, dozens of alien faces watched them with curiosity, amusement, or contempt. Cracked her knuckles. They think we are weak. Good, said Park. He pulled off his jacket, revealing arms covered in old scars. Let them think that. The oldest member of the team at 40 years, sat down and began wrapping cloth around his hands. When do we start? He asked. Park looked at the watching aliens. He smiled, but there was something dangerous in that smile. Now, he said, let us show the galaxy how humans prepare for battle. And in the observation gallery, the aliens leaned forward to watch, expecting entertainment. They had no idea what they were about to see. The aliens expected a show. They got something else entirely. Park stood in the center of the gymnasium and clapped his hands twice. The 11 other humans immediately formed a line facing him. Their faces became serious. Their backs became straight. In one moment, they changed from tired travelers into something else. Basic warm-up, Park announced. We start slow. In the observation gallery, a reptilian warrior named Kel laughed to his companions. Warm up. They need to warm up before fighting. How weak are these creatures? The humans began with simple movements. They rolled their necks. They swung their arms in circles. They bent at the waist and touched their toes. The watching aliens found this amusing. Several made jokes about the soft, flexible bodies of humans. Then the jumping started. Led the team in what humans called jumping jacks, arms up, legs apart, arms down, legs together, again and again and again. The aliens watched with mild interest. This seemed pointless, but perhaps it was some kind of ritual. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. The humans did not stop. Kel stopped laughing. He leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. The humans were still jumping. Their bodies were now covered in a strange liquid that dripped from their skin. What is that fluid? Asked another alien. Are they injured? Are they leaking? No one could answer. The translator devices offered a word, sweat, but no one understood what sweat meant. 30 minutes. The humans switched to a different exercise. They dropped to the ground, pushed their bodies up with their arms, and then jumped their feet forward. Then they leaped into the air with their hands above their heads. Then they dropped down and did it again. The translator provided the word, but not the meaning. Lee counted out loud, 51, 52, 53. The aliens had stopped talking. More were gathering at the observation windows. Word was spreading through the station that something strange was happening in the old gymnasium. Commander heard the reports and came to see for himself. He pushed through the crowd of smaller aliens until he reached the window. The humans had been exercising for 1 hour now. They had not stopped, not even for a moment. Watched, she was holding her body in a straight line, supported only by her forearms and toes. Her face was calm. Her breathing was steady. The sweat ran down her body like rain. How long has she been in that position? Asked. 12 minutes, someone answered. She has not moved. Felt something strange. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was the beginning of doubt. In his species, a fight lasted 30 seconds at most. One explosive burst of violence, and then it was over. The idea of maintaining combat readiness for an hour was not just difficult, it was impossible. But these humans were doing it. Demonstrated her flexibility next. She bent her body backwards until her hands touched the ground behind her feet. Then she lifted one leg straight up until it pointed at the ceiling. She held this position while breathing normally, as if it required no effort at all. A warrior beside made a choking sound. That should not be possible. Her skeleton should break. Humans have different bodies than us, said quietly. He was beginning to understand that he had underestimated these creatures. The warm-up continued. The humans ran in place, lifting their knees high. They did exercises that twisted their bodies in ways that seemed painful. They held positions that should have caused their muscles to fail. 2 hours passed. Kel felt sick. His species could fight at maximum power for exactly 45 seconds. After that, their bodies shut down and needed hours to recover. These humans had been exercising at high intensity for 2 hours, and they showed no signs of stopping. "This is not natural," Kel whispered. "This is not possible." But it was happening right in front of him. Park finally called for the team to stop. The 12 humans stood in a line, breathing hard, their bodies soaked with sweat. But they were standing. They were alert. They were ready. "Good warm-up," Park said. He picked up a towel and wiped his face. "Now we can begin the actual training." The observation gallery had grown silent. Over 300 aliens now pressed against the windows, staring at the humans with expressions of shock and confusion. Kel's translator device highlighted the words, "Actual training." The warm-up was not the training. The 2 hours of non-stop exercise was just the preparation, just the beginning. Kel looked at Commander. The great warrior's face was impossible to read, but his blade arms hung limp at his sides. He had not moved in over an hour. "Commander," Kel said carefully, "what are these creatures?" Did not answer. He could not answer. For the first time in 300 years, he had no idea what he was looking at. In the gymnasium, tied her hair back and smiled at her teammates. "Ready?" she asked. They all nodded. Park cracked his neck and raised his fists. "Let us show them what humans are made of," he said. And in the observation gallery, 300 of the galaxy's strongest warriors held their breath, afraid of what they were about to see. They were right to be afraid. Park stood across from. They bowed to each other with deep respect. Then they raised their fists. The first punch came so fast that most aliens could not see it. His fist crashed into Park's ribs with a sound like thunder. He bent slightly from the impact, let out a sharp breath, and then straightened up. He was smiling. In the observation gallery, a scholar named from the collective frantically used his 4 hands to type notes. His species studied all forms of combat, but he had never seen anything like this. "The force of that strike," he muttered to himself. "Based on sound and impact, it should have broken at least 3 ribs, but he is still standing. He is still fighting." Attacked again. Her leg swung in a wide arc and crashed into Park's side. He blocked with his arm, but the impact pushed him back 2 steps. Red marks appeared on his skin immediately. He responded with his own attacks. His fists moved like machines, each strike landing with terrible force. Took the hits to her arms, her shoulders, her stomach. Each impact made the watching aliens flinch. But she did not fall. She did not even slow down. "They are trying to kill each other," whispered Kel. His scales had turned pale, a sign of deep fear in his species. Commander watched without blinking. "No," he said slowly. "They are not trying to kill. This is practice." "Practice?" Kel could not understand. "They are causing serious damage. I can see the bruises forming on their bodies." And they do not care. Finally understood what made humans different. Pain means nothing to them. The sparring continued. Lee faced next. She was smaller than him, lighter, seemingly weaker. But when she jumped into the air and spun her body, her foot moved faster than sight. It crashed into his head with enough force to knock down a wall. Lee fell. His body hit the ground hard. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Calculated rapidly. That kick generated enough force to crack the skull of any known species. The human male should be dead or at least unconscious. Lee pushed himself up. He spit blood onto the ground. He touched his jaw and moved it back and forth to check if it was broken. It was not. He smiled at and raised his fists again. Good kick, do it again. She did. This time he blocked it. The impact of her shin against his forearm echoed through the gymnasium. Neither of them seemed to feel it. The oldest human at 40 years stepped into the center next. He moved differently than the younger humans. Slower, more careful. But when he struck, his fists carried the weight of decades. His technique, observed, is different from the others, more efficient, less wasted movement. He has been doing this longer, said. In any other species, age meant weakness. Older warriors retired or died. But this human, at 40 years, seemed more dangerous than some of the younger ones. Join the training next. She demonstrated something she called ground fighting. She wrapped her legs around her opponent's body and twisted in ways that should have broken her own spine. Instead, her opponent tapped the ground in surrender, unable to breathe. They fight on the ground, Kell said with horror. In his culture, being on the ground meant death. A warrior who fell was already defeated, but these humans chose to go to the ground. They were comfortable there. They were deadly there. The most disturbing part came next. Park gathered the team for what he called conditioning. They stood in a line and took turns hitting each other's stomachs, not gentle taps, full power punches that made their bodies shake. Why? Could not understand. Why are they hurting themselves? To become harder, answered. He remembered the old stories of human evolution. They were prey animals once, hunted by larger predators on their home planet. They survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by refusing to die. Lee struck a wooden board with his shin. The board snapped in half. He did this again and again, each time with a fresh board, each time with the same shin. The bone should have shattered. Instead, the bone became harder. They are remaking their own bodies, whispered. Through pain and repetition, they are turning themselves into weapons. One alien in the gallery vomited. The sight of humans deliberately damaging themselves was too much. Several others left, unable to watch anymore. But most stayed. They could not look away. The training went on for 4 more hours. 6 hours total since the humans arrived. 6 hours of non-stop combat, non-stop pain, non-stop improvement. When they finally stopped, the 12 humans were covered in bruises, cuts, and sweat. They were breathing hard. Their bodies trembled from exhaustion. But they were standing. They were all standing. Park bowed to his team. They bowed back. Good session, he said. We rest now. Tomorrow we train harder. Harder? Tomorrow would be harder than this. In the observation gallery, over 1,000 aliens stood in complete silence. They had come to laugh at the weak humans. They were no longer laughing. Commander turned and walked away without speaking. He needed time to think. He needed to understand what he had just witnessed. Because for the first time in 300 years, he was afraid. Not afraid of losing a fight, afraid of something much worse. Afraid that he had spent his entire life thinking he knew what strength meant. And afraid that he had been completely wrong. The main arena of Station Apex 7 could hold 50,000 spectators. On the day of the human demonstration, every seat was filled. Aliens of every species pressed together, all wanting to see the strange creatures from Earth. Word had spread across the entire station. Stories about the humans and their impossible training had traveled through every corridor. Some said the humans were secret genetic experiments. Others claimed they used hidden technology to enhance their bodies. A few whispered that humans were not organic at all, but some kind of biological machine. Grand Marshal sat in the highest box, overlooking the arena. He commanded all military forces of the Galactic Union, and he had seen every form of combat in the known galaxy. Beside him sat Ambassador Shin from Earth, a small woman in formal clothes who showed no emotion on her face. "Your warriors have caused quite a reaction," said. His voice was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder. "The reports from the training gymnasium are difficult to believe." "They are accurate," Shin replied calmly. "Studied her, we shall see." The arena floor was empty except for a single combat drone floating in the center. This drone was the most advanced fighting machine in the galaxy. It could match the speed and power of any known warrior species. It had never been defeated by an organic fighter. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. "For today's demonstration, the human delegation has requested a single combat trial. One human fighter against the combat drone at maximum difficulty." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Maximum difficulty had never been attempted before. Warriors who fought the drone at medium difficulty often ended up in medical facilities for weeks. Walked out onto the arena floor. She wore simple clothes, loose and light. Her feet were bare. She carried no weapons, no armor, nothing at all. 50,000 aliens stared at this small human woman. She was less than 2 meters tall. She weighed perhaps 60 kilograms. Against the combat drone, she looked like a child facing a monster. The drone activated. Its weapon systems hummed with power. Targeting lasers painted red dots across body. She stood perfectly still. Her breathing was slow and steady. Her eyes never left the drone. The match began. The drone attacked first, moving faster than most eyes could follow. Its metal arms struck towards head with enough force to crush stone. She was not there. Moved like water, like smoke, like something not quite solid. The drone's attacks passed through empty air as she twisted and bent around each strike. She made it look easy, natural, as if she had always known exactly where the attacks would come. Then she hit back. Her fist connected with the drone's body. The metal dented. The drone stumbled. The crowd gasped. No organic fighter had ever damaged the drone before. The battle continued. The drone adapted, growing faster, more aggressive. It struck shoulder, spinning her sideways. It hit her ribs, making her grunt with pain. It kicked her legs, nearly bringing her down. She took every hit, and she kept fighting. 5 minutes. The drone's attacks grew more desperate. Its body was covered in bruises and cuts. Blood ran down her arm from a gash on her shoulder. She did not stop. 10 minutes. The drone was now moving at its absolute maximum speed. Its strikes could shatter bones, rupture organs, kill almost any living creature. Caught one of its arms. With a scream of effort, she twisted her body and threw the drone over her shoulder. It crashed into the ground, creating a crater in the arena floor. The crowd was silent. No one could speak. No one could breathe. Jumped onto the fallen drone. Her elbow came down like a hammer once, twice, 3 times. Sparks flew. Metal cracked. Circuits broke. The drone stopped moving. 11 minutes. One human woman, no weapons, no armor. Victory. The silence lasted for a long moment. Then slowly, the sound began. It started as a whisper and grew into a roar. 50,000 aliens, many from species that had been enemies for centuries, were cheering together. They were cheering for a human. Grand Marshal sat frozen in his seat. He turned to Ambassador Shin, who was smiling slightly. "How?" he asked. "How is this possible?" "We are human," she answered simply. "This is what we do." The demonstration continued. Lee stepped forward to show breaking techniques. He struck blocks of material rated for starship armor. His hands and feet shattered them like glass. Displayed combat gymnastics, moving through the air in ways that seemed to ignore gravity. She landed strikes while spinning, flipping, and twisting in every direction. All 12 humans performed a synchronized fighting form together. Their movements were perfect, identical, beautiful. It was not just combat, it was art. When they finished and bowed to the crowd, the cheering was deafening. In his private box, Grand Marshal spoke quietly to his aide. I want every file on human military history, every record of their wars, their weapons, their tactics. I want it all, and I want it now." His aide hurried away. Looked down at the 12 humans standing in the arena, surrounded by the applause of 50,000 warriors. They were so small, so fragile-looking, so easy to underestimate. And that, he realized, was the most dangerous thing about them. Because any species that looked that weak, but fought that strong, was not a species to be taken lightly. It was a species to be very, very careful around. 1 week after the demonstration, Commander stood outside the human gymnasium. He had been standing there for 30 minutes, trying to find the courage to enter. For 300 years, he had never hesitated before anything. He had fought monsters. He had led armies. He had killed enemies by the thousands. But walking through that door terrified him more than any battle. Because walking through that door meant admitting he had been wrong. Finally, he entered. Park was alone inside, practicing slow movements in the center of the room. His eyes were closed. His body flowed like water from one position to the next. He looked peaceful, calm, completely at ease. "Commander," he said without opening his eyes, "I have been expecting you." Approached slowly. His blade arms hung loose at his sides, a sign of respect among his people. "I came to ask you something," he said. "Ask." Struggled with the words. Pride fought against curiosity in his mind. Finally, curiosity won. "How?" he asked. "Your species has no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. You are smaller than almost every warrior race in the galaxy, yet you defeated our most advanced combat drone. You train in ways that would kill most species. How is this possible?" Park opened his eyes and smiled. He gestured for to sit. The massive lowered himself to the floor, his legs folding beneath him. "Let me tell you about humans," Park said. "Millions of years ago, we were not the strongest creatures on our planet. We were not the fastest. We could not fly. We could not breathe underwater. We had no claws, no fangs, no venom. Then how did you survive?" "We refused to die." Park's voice was quiet but firm. "When a predator chased us, we could not outrun it, so we followed it instead. We walked after it for hours, for days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. We hunted by refusing to stop." Considered this persistence. Yes, humans are not the strongest species. We are the most stubborn. We cannot win a fight in 30 seconds like your people can. So we learned to fight for 30 minutes, for 30 hours, for 30 days if necessary. "But the pain," said. "I watched your training, the damage you do to yourselves, to each other. It should break you." Park showed his hands to the alien commander. They were covered in scars, calluses, and old injuries. "Pain is a teacher," he said. "It tells us where we are weak, so we find those weak places and make them strong. Every scar on my body is a lesson I learned. Every injury made me better." He stood and walked to the wall where photographs hung. They showed human warriors throughout history, soldiers in ancient armor, fighters in simple clothes, athletes in modern uniforms. "Every human who fights carries the knowledge of thousands of years," Park said. "When I throw a punch, I am not just using my own strength. I am using techniques developed by my ancestors over countless generations. Each movement has been practiced millions of times by millions of people." Stared at the photographs. He was beginning to understand. "We are strong because we have always been weak," Park continued. "We had to become strong. We had no choice." Silence filled the room. Sat very still, processing everything he had heard. "I have been the galaxy's greatest warrior for 300 years, he finally said. "I was born with blade arms. I was born with armor. I was given my strength. But you humans, you earned yours." Park nodded. "Every human earns their strength, every day, through sweat and pain and endless practice." Rose to his full height. He looked down at the human with new eyes. "Will you teach me?" he asked. The question surprised Park. "Teach you?" The human way of fighting, the human way of training, I want to learn. Park smiled. It will hurt. I do not care. It will take years. I have time. Park extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Did not understand the gesture, but he wrapped his blade arm carefully around the human's forearm. Then we begin tomorrow, Park said, at sunrise. At the same time, in the great council chamber of the Galactic Union, Council Elder addressed the assembled representatives. After careful review of the human demonstration and training methods, I move to reclassify humanity from juvenile species to apex species. The motion passed unanimously. Grand Marshal met with Ambassador Shin later that day to discuss alliance terms. Earth would have full military partnership with the Galactic Union. Human warriors would serve as advisors and trainers across the galaxy. But Park added one condition to the agreement. We will share our knowledge with anyone who wants to learn, he said. Any species, any world. If they are willing to work, we will teach them. This was the human way. Strength was not meant to be hoarded, it was meant to be shared. 1 year later, training facilities built to human specifications existed on 100 different worlds. Aliens of every species learned to push their bodies past their limits. They learned to embrace pain as a teacher. They learned the human secret, that true strength comes not from what you are born with, but from what you are willing to earn. In a gymnasium on Station Apex 7, Commander stood with sweat dripping from his carapace. His muscles trembled. His lungs burned. Every part of his body screamed at him to stop. Stood in front of him, correcting his stance with small adjustments. Your back foot is wrong, she said, again. He adjusted his foot. He raised his blade arms into the proper position. Better, said, now again. The galaxy's most feared warrior obeyed. And somewhere, watching from the observation gallery, Park smiled. This was what humans gave to the galaxy, not conquest, not domination, but the simple, powerful truth that anyone could become stronger. All they had to do was refuse to stop. All they had to do was try again.